Every level of cancer. Explained.
Level 1, trash. Now, before you get worried, let me explain what I mean by trash in this context. These are your wannabe villains. A single cell, maybe in your lung, your breast, your colon, wherever, starts dividing when it shouldn't. It's received some kind of damage, maybe from UV radiation, maybe from chemicals, maybe just from the normal wear and tear of living for decades in a human body. But here's the beautiful part. Your immune system catches it instantly and says, hey, cut that out. And most of the time, it listens. This is like your body's version of a rebellious teenager trying to skip curfew. Annoying maybe, but not dangerous yet. The cell might ignore one or two growth signals, start dividing a little too enthusiastically, but it's still following most of the cellular rules. It still looks normal under a microscope. It still responds to the body's stop signals. What's happening at the molecular level is actually pretty incredible. Your immune system has specialized cells called natural killer cells, and yes, that's their actual name, that patrol your body 24/7 looking for exactly this kind of troublemaker. They're like cellular police officers with one job: identify cells that are acting suspicious and eliminate them before they become a problem. The thing is, this happens to all of us, constantly. Every day, thousands of your cells accumulate damage that could potentially lead to cancer, and every day, your immune system quietly handles the situation without you ever knowing about it. It's estimated that the average person develops several potentially cancerous cells every single day, and they're eliminated before they ever become an issue. That's why level 1 isn't really cancer yet. It's pre-cancer. It's cellular misbehavior that gets corrected by your body's natural defense systems. The cell might multiply a few extra times, form a tiny cluster, but then it either gets eliminated or corrects itself and goes back to normal behavior. However, and this is important, sometimes these rebel cells are persistent. They might survive that first immune system assault. They might develop ways to hide from the cellular police. And when that happens, they start climbing the ladder to level 2. The key thing to understand about level 1 is that this stage is usually completely reversible. Your body has multiple redundant systems designed specifically to catch and correct these cellular rebels before they become a real problem. This is why maintaining a healthy immune system through proper nutrition, regular exercise, adequate sleep, and stress management is so crucial. You're not just preventing cancer, you're supporting the natural anti-cancer mechanisms that are already working inside you every single day. Overall, level 1 represents the body doing exactly what it's supposed to do, identifying potential threats and neutralizing them before they become actual threats. It's cellular democracy in action, with the immune system serving as both judge and jury for cells that step out of line. Level 2, bad. Now we're getting into territory where your immune system is starting to sweat a little bit. These cells have figured out how to multiply faster than drama spreads in a group chat, and they're getting pretty good at ignoring the body's calm down signals. What we're dealing with here is called hyperplasia, which is just a fancy medical term for too many cells in one place. Think of it like this. Imagine you're running a well-organized office, and suddenly one department decides they need to hire 50 new people without asking permission. The building gets crowded, resources get stretched, and management starts asking questions. That's exactly what's happening in your body at level 2. These cells are dividing more frequently than they should, and this is the key difference from level 1, they're not just doing it once or twice, they're making it a habit. They've developed what scientists call growth autonomy, which basically means they've stopped listening to the normal signals that tell cells when to stop multiplying. The thing is, under a microscope, these cells still look completely normal. A pathologist examining tissue at this stage might see more cells than expected, but each individual cell looks healthy and properly formed. It's like having a crowd of well-dressed people. Nothing wrong with any individual person, but the sheer number of them in one place starts to raise eyebrows. Here's where it gets interesting from a biological perspective. At level 2, your immune system is still very much in the fight, but it's starting to get overwhelmed. Remember those natural killer cells I mentioned? They're working overtime now, trying to eliminate these overactive cell populations. Sometimes they succeed and the tissue returns to normal. Sometimes they don't, and we start moving toward level 3. What makes level 2 particularly important is that it's often still completely reversible. Many of the risk factors that contribute to cellular overgrowth, things like chronic inflammation, hormonal imbalances, or exposure to certain chemicals, can be addressed at this stage. Remove the irritants, support your immune system, and often the body will clean house on its own. This is why regular screenings are so valuable. Doctors can often detect hyperplasia long before it becomes anything more serious. A dermatologist might notice too many cells in a mole. A gynecologist might observe overgrowth in cervical tissue. A gastroenterologist might spot hyperplasia during a routine colonoscopy. At this stage, treatment is usually straightforward and highly effective. However, Level 2 cells are also starting to develop some concerning habits. They're beginning to accumulate additional genetic mutations. Think of these as software bugs in the cellular operating system. Most of these bugs are harmless or even fatal to the cell itself, but occasionally, one of these mutations gives the cell a survival advantage. That's when things get suspicious. That's when doctors start using words like atypical and abnormal proliferation. Because while level 2 is still relatively benign, it represents the cellular equivalent of a peaceful protest that's starting to get a little too organized for comfort. The bottom line with level 2 is this: your body is still winning the war, but individual battles are starting to take longer and require more resources. This stage can persist for months or even years without progressing further, especially if you're supporting your immune system properly. But it's also the stage where prevention really matters because we're approaching the point of no return. Level 3, mid. All right, now we're entering what I like to call the awkward teenager phase of cancer development. These cells have officially lost their way, and it shows. At level 3, we're dealing with dysplasia, which literally means bad formation. If level 2 was about too many normal-looking cells, level 3 is about cells that have started to look weird, really weird. Under a microscope, these cells are confused, misshapen, uneven, and frankly just ugly. It's like your body's attempt at abstract art, except nobody asked for it, and you're staring at it going, what the hell am I looking at? Here's what's happening at the cellular level. Those genetic mutations I mentioned in level 2. They're starting to add up. Each cell division is now like a game of telephone where the message gets more garbled every time it's passed along. The cellular DNA, which is basically the instruction manual for how to be a normal, well-behaved cell, is accumulating errors faster than it can be repaired. The result? Cells that have forgotten how to look and act normal. A pathologist examining tissue at this stage will see cells of different sizes crowded together, nuclei that are abnormally large or oddly shaped, and cellular architecture that looks like it was designed by someone who'd never seen a normal cell before. But here's the thing that makes level 3 particularly concerning. These cells are still not technically cancer. They're precancerous. They haven't learned how to invade surrounding tissue yet. They haven't figured out how to spread to other parts of the body. They're just sitting there in their original location, looking increasingly suspicious and making everyone nervous. Think of it like this. If normal cells are law-abiding citizens and level 1 cells are jaywalkers, then level 3 cells are the ones spray painting graffiti on buildings and hanging out in groups on street corners. They haven't committed any major crimes yet, but the police are definitely keeping an eye on them. What makes dysplasia particularly tricky is that it can persist for years without progressing further. I've seen cases where mild dysplasia was detected during routine screening and remained stable for decades. The cells never learned any new tricks. They just stayed weird-looking but harmless. On the other hand, some dysplastic cells are overachievers. They're actively accumulating new mutations, testing new survival strategies, and gradually becoming more resistant to the immune system's attempts to eliminate them. These are the cells that are most likely to progress to level 4. The key difference between level 3 and the earlier levels is that your immune system is starting to struggle. Those natural killer cells that were so effective at levels 1 and 2, they're having a harder time recognizing these dysplastic cells as threats. The cells have started developing what scientists call immune evasion strategies, basically ways to hide from or confuse the cellular police. From a medical perspective, this is where screening and early intervention become absolutely crucial. Cervical dysplasia detected through pap smears, skin dysplasia caught during dermatology exams, colon dysplasia found during colonoscopies. At this stage, treatment is still highly effective and usually involves removing the abnormal tissue before it has a chance to progress further. However, level 3 represents a critical inflection point. We're standing at the border between abnormal but manageable, and this could actually become cancer. The cellular rebellion is becoming more organized, more persistent, and more resistant to the body's natural control mechanisms. The vibe is definitely off, real off. And while many cases of dysplasia never progress beyond this point, level 3 cells have officially entered the danger zone where close monitoring and proactive intervention become essential. Level 4. Okay. Not okay, as in good news, okay as in we've officially crossed the line. This is where pathologists stop using gentle terms like atypical and start using the C word. But here's the twist. It's cancer with training wheels on. At level 4, we're dealing with what's called carcinoma in situ, which literally translates to cancer in place. These cells have officially learned how to be malignant. They're immortal. They ignore growth signals completely, and they've developed sophisticated ways to evade your immune system. But they're still trapped in their original neighborhood. Think of it like this. These are criminals who have planned the perfect heist, gathered all the tools, and even disabled the security system, but they're still locked inside the bank vault. Dangerous? Absolutely. Immediate threat to your life? Not yet. What makes level 4 so significant is that these cells have crossed what scientists call the malignant threshold. They've accumulated enough genetic mutations to become truly autonomous. They no longer respond to any of the body's normal control mechanisms. They've essentially become cellular sociopaths, completely self-interested and utterly indifferent to the needs of the tissues around them. Under the microscope, these cells look frankly bizarre. They're highly disorganized, with nuclei that are often enormous and misshapen. Some cells might be giant, others tiny. They're dividing rapidly and chaotically. A trained pathologist can look at this tissue and immediately know something is seriously wrong. But here's the crucial point about carcinoma in situ. It's still technically curable in most cases. Because these cancer cells haven't learned how to break through what's called the basement membrane, essentially the biological fence that separates different tissue layers, they can often be completely removed with surgery, laser treatment, or other localized therapies. This is where early detection becomes absolutely game-changing. Cervical cancer in situ detected through Pap smears has a cure rate approaching 100%. Ductal carcinoma in situ of the breast, when caught early, has excellent outcomes. Even some skin cancers at this stage can be completely eliminated with relatively simple procedures. The scary part, you might never know it's happening. Unlike infections or injuries, carcinoma in situ rarely causes pain, obvious symptoms, or any kind of immediate distress. These cells are focused entirely on their own survival and multiplication. They're not interested in making you feel sick. That comes later. Now, here's something crucial I need to address. One of the key factors that influences whether these precancerous and early cancerous changes progress to something more serious is chronic inflammation. When your body is constantly dealing with inflammatory stress from poor diet, environmental toxins, chronic infections, or other sources, it creates an environment where these cellular rebels can thrive. This is actually why I developed my 21-day inflammation reset program. After years of research into the connection between inflammation and cancer development, I realized that most people are walking around with chronic low-grade inflammation that they don't even know about. And this inflammation isn't just making them feel tired and achy, it's potentially creating the perfect environment for cellular mutations to accumulate and progress. The program focuses on identifying and eliminating the most common inflammatory triggers in our diet and lifestyle, while introducing powerful anti-inflammatory foods and practices that can help restore your body's natural healing mechanisms. Because here's the thing, at levels 1 through 4, your body still has tremendous power to heal itself, but only if you give it the right tools and remove the obstacles. You can check out the full details in the pinned comment below, and the key point is this: the same dietary and lifestyle factors that drive chronic inflammation also contribute to cancer development and progression. By addressing inflammation systematically, you're not just improving how you feel day to day, you're potentially supporting your body's natural ability to prevent and eliminate abnormal cells before they become a serious problem. Level 4 represents both a warning and an opportunity. It's the last stage where cancer is still localized, still contained, and still highly treatable. But it's also the stage where proactive intervention, both medical and lifestyle-based, becomes absolutely critical. Level 5. Good. Again, not good as in pleasant, good as in we're dealing with real cancer now, but it's still in a category where treatment can be highly effective if you act fast. At level 5, cancer has officially escaped its original prison. These cells have learned how to break through the basement membrane I mentioned earlier, and they're starting to invade surrounding tissues. It's like the criminals not only broke out of the vault, but they've also figured out how to pick locks and are now moving through the building. What makes this level particularly significant is that cancer cells have developed what oncologists call invasive capability. They're producing enzymes that can dissolve the biological barriers between different types of tissue. They're learning how to manipulate their environment, essentially remodeling the neighborhood to suit their needs. Under the microscope, you can actually see this invasion happening. Cancer cells form what look like fingers or tentacles reaching out into healthy tissue. They're not just growing larger as a mass, they're actively spreading outward, following blood vessels, nerve pathways, and other anatomical structures like highways into new territory. But here's why level 5 is still considered good from a treatment perspective. The cancer is still local. It hasn't learned how to travel through the bloodstream or lymphatic system to distant organs. This means that surgical removal, radiation therapy, chemotherapy, or combinations of these treatments can still eliminate the entire cancer in many cases. Think of it like dealing with an invasive plant species in your garden. If it's only spread to the immediate area around where it was originally planted, you can still dig it up, roots and all, and completely eliminate the problem. But if you wait too long and it starts sending seeds all over your property, removal becomes much more complicated. The 5-year survival rates for many level 5 cancers are actually quite encouraging. Early-stage breast cancer that's locally invasive has survival rates above 90%. Many colorectal cancers caught at this stage have excellent outcomes. Even some lung cancers, when detected early and treated aggressively, can be completely cured. However, level 5 is also where cancer starts to become more metabolically demanding. These cells are dividing rapidly, invading aggressively, and requiring massive amounts of energy to fuel their activities. This is where you might start noticing some symptoms: fatigue, unexplained weight loss, changes in appetite, or other signs that something is wrong. The cancer cells are also starting to manipulate their local environment in more sophisticated ways. They're stimulating the growth of new blood vessels to supply themselves with nutrients. They're producing chemical signals that suppress local immune responses. They're essentially creating their own little ecosystem designed to support their continued growth and survival. At this point, treatment becomes more complex, but it's still very much focused on complete elimination. Surgery often involves not just removing the tumor, but also examining surrounding tissues and nearby lymph nodes to ensure that all cancer cells have been eliminated. Radiation therapy might be used to target any microscopic cells that could have been missed. Chemotherapy might be recommended to destroy any circulating cancer cells before they can establish new colonies. The key thing about level 5 is that this represents the last stage where cancer is still considered localized invasive. The cells have learned some dangerous new tricks, but they haven't yet figured out how to pack their bags and move to entirely different organs. This containment makes all the difference in terms of treatment options and long-term outcomes. Level 5 represents a serious escalation in the cellular rebellion, but it's still very much a winnable fight when detected early and treated aggressively. The cancer has gained some new abilities, but it hasn't yet learned its most dangerous tricks. Level 6, great. Great, because the cancer is getting really good at surviving, and I mean really good. At this level, we're dealing with cancer that has figured out how to travel. These cells have developed what oncologists call metastatic capability, but they're still playing it relatively conservative. They've spread to nearby lymph nodes or invaded adjacent tissue systems, but they haven't yet launched their full-scale global conquest. Think of it like this. If level 5 was a local gang taking over their neighborhood, level 6 is that same organization expanding into adjacent territories, setting up supply chains, and establishing satellite operations. They're building an empire, but it's still a regional empire. What makes level 6 particularly concerning is that cancer cells have learned some truly sophisticated survival strategies. They're no longer just breaking rules. They're rewriting them entirely. They've figured out how to hijack your body's own blood vessels and lymphatic highways to transport themselves to new locations. They're producing growth factors that stimulate the formation of new blood vessels specifically to feed their expanding operations. They've even learned how to manipulate your immune system, turning some of your own defense cells into unwitting accomplices. Under the microscope, these cancer cells look like they've attended an advanced course in biological warfare. They're highly pleomorphic, meaning they come in all shapes and sizes, and they're dividing at rates that would make bacteria jealous. Some of them look almost normal. Others look like something from a science fiction movie. This diversity isn't accidental. It's a survival strategy. The more varied the cancer cell population, the more likely some of them will survive whatever treatment gets thrown at them. The lymph nodes are particularly important at this stage. Your lymphatic system is basically your body's sewage and transportation network combined. It moves fluid, waste products, and immune cells throughout your body. When cancer cells learn how to access this system, they gain the ability to establish beachheads in lymph nodes, which then become launching pads for further expansion. This is where treatment becomes a chess match. Oncologists aren't just trying to eliminate cancer cells, they're trying to outsmart an opponent that's constantly adapting and evolving. Surgery might involve removing not just the primary tumor, but also multiple lymph node chains. Chemotherapy becomes more aggressive, often involving multiple drugs designed to attack cancer cells through different mechanisms. Radiation therapy might target multiple sites simultaneously. The 5-year survival rates at level 6 vary dramatically depending on the type of cancer, how far it's spread, and how well it responds to treatment. Some cancers caught at this stage still have excellent outcomes. Others become much more challenging to cure, though they can often be controlled for years with appropriate treatment. What's particularly insidious about level 6 is that cancer cells start developing what scientists call treatment resistance. They're constantly mutating, and any cells that survive a round of chemotherapy or radiation are likely to be the ones with genetic changes that make them harder to kill. It's evolutionary pressure in real time, and cancer cells are remarkably good at adapting. This is also where cancer really starts to affect your body's overall function. The metabolic demands of rapidly dividing cancer cells, combined with the body's inflammatory response to their presence, can lead to significant symptoms. Weight loss, fatigue, pain, and changes in organ function all become more common as the cancer burden increases. At level 6, treatment success often depends on how aggressive the medical team can be while still preserving your quality of life. It's a delicate balance between hitting the cancer hard enough to stop its progression and avoiding treatments that are more dangerous than the disease itself. The cancer has officially become a criminal syndicate expanding across borders, and stopping it requires a coordinated, multi-front approach. But with early detection and aggressive treatment, many level 6 cancers can still be controlled or even eliminated.